Are you charging enough for the value that you're providing? If you find that your calendar is full, but your revenue's been pretty flat, it might be time to raise your legal fees. In today's video, I'm going to kind of walk you through the key signs that it's time to raise your legal fees and how to do it without losing good clients. So let's talk about why raising your fees matters. You know, we have rising costs with inflation, your overhead expenses, and just, increasing your expertise, your ongoing trainings, bringing on staff. All those things add up and get expensive. And every year they get more and more expensive. But so many times attorneys are not raising their fees every year in correlation to their rising expenses. And really undercharging is going to lead you to burnout. It's going to lead you to resentment. And that's not why you went solo. That's not why you went out on your own. We don't want to have like this value mismatch where you have this high level of service, but a low level of compensation that you're receiving for your services. So what are 6 signs that it's time for you to raise your fees? Well, let's see. Are you booked out for weeks and months in advance? Are your clients not pushing back on your prices? You say your price and they say, no problem, I'm going to pay right now. Are you handling more complex cases than you were before? Excuse me, I've been practicing for 16 years. The type of cases that I take on now versus the ones that I took on not only 16 years ago, I would say even 5 years ago, I'm able to handle more complex cases than I used to. And I'm sure the same is true for you as well. Right? If your overhead has increased, if you have a brick and mortar office, I'm sure your overhead costs have increased. But even if you don't have a brick and mortar, software prices have increased, your technology fees have increased. Overall, your expenses are getting more and more. If you have any kind of support staff, those costs have increased. You need to make sure that your business is still continuing to be profitable and grow in its profits. And that's going to require you increasing your fees, not just taking on more cases. Talking about staff and the cost of staff, if you've added more staff to your team, if you've improved the technology in your firm, if you have added credentials or certifications, again, all more reasons that it's time to raise your fees. And then also, if you just have this overall sense of feeling like you're stretched too thin, that you are feeling like you're undervalued. So aside from raising your fees, something else we can also talk about is making sure you are capturing your time. If you are an hourly biller, even if you do flat fee, you should be tracking kind of how long it's taking to get cases done. But just so many times when I'm working with solo attorneys who bill hourly, they are not capturing all their time. And if you're not capturing your time in real time and you're trying to go back at the end of the week, at the end of the month, or even at the end of the day and figure out how much time you spent doing things, you are leaving money on the table. That's a whole nother conversation when it comes to, getting your fees, getting paid, making sure you're being paid for your time. So you should be tracking your time in live time. And so I know for some clients, they have software, if you're using like Clio or MyCase or any other software, sometimes it just seems to be such an extra step to enter that in online as you are doing the task. So even just keeping a notepad next to your laptop and just making notes as you go and then going back at the end of the day and entering that time into your software. That works great for a lot of my clients. So something else to consider to make sure you're actually capturing your time for those hourly clients, and for flat fees, making sure that you are charging an adequate flat fee based on the time spent working on the case. Not just your time spent, right? You should also be factoring the expertise and other factors that should go into determining your flat fee, but we want to make sure we are factoring how much time it actually takes you to get it done. So let's talk about how are you going to raise your fees and how are you going to do so strategically. Now, when I recommend my law firm owners to raise their fees, I recommend for all clients, current clients and new. And that might make you gasp and might make you say, whoa, I don't want to increase my fees on my current clients. If you don't want to, you don't have to. I'm never going to try to make a client do something that they don't want to do. But when I raise my fees, it is for all my clients across the board. And so I give them advanced notice. So I generally increase my fees January 1st of every year. And so when I do, I'm letting current clients know at least 90 days in advance that, hey, effective January 1st, your new hourly rate is going to be X amount per hour. And so I am primarily flat fee in my practice. I have very few hourly clients. So for the ones that I do, I am giving them that advance notice well in advance. For my flat fee clients, if they're current clients, I'm not raising their flat fee, right? Like we have already contracted that I will do their estate plan or their for sale by owner transaction or their Chapter 7 bankruptcy at that flat fee. I'm not increasing those on flat fees. When I say I increase fees on current clients, that's only for hourly, but again, I have pretty few hourly clients. And then so for the future clients beginning January 1st, those are going to be the higher set flat fees. And that's when my increased hourly rate is going to take into effect. And just make sure you're keeping it updated wherever you have those fees posted. So I have my fees on my website, so I make sure I update it there. I have like an estate planning guide, a probate guide, and I make sure I update it in all those places where my fees are listed. And so I don't think you need to feel bad about increasing fees on a current client, right? Again, your overhead, your costs are increasing. Whenever I'm increasing, generally my increases are not more than about 10% roughly when I do increase my fees. And so it's not, that's still can be a large amount, but I've never had a client push back. In all the years that I've had ongoing clients where I've increased fees on them, I've never once had a client push back on me as far as the increase in my hourly rate for those hourly clients. So if your cause for concern is that you're thinking you're going to lose a bunch of clients, I really don't think this was going to happen. That hasn't been my experience, nor has it been my clients' experience when I've worked with law firm owners who have also increased their fees. And so if you want to increase your fees for new clients and not increase it for current clients, that's kind of a hybrid approach to that, right? So if you're going to increase fees January 1st, keeping current clients at their fixed hourly rates and just increasing new clients January 1st, just make sure when you're doing your billing that you're keeping track of who is at what rate. That can get a little confusing for you or your bookkeeper, whoever's handling the invoices for your firm. So making sure that it's clear what the hourly rate is for the different clients if you have different hourly rates set. But I highly think that you should look at increasing your fees, especially if you haven't increased your fees in the past year or two. It's time. And if it's been longer than just a year or two since you've increased your fees, you are definitely past due on that fee increase. So that's kind of my thoughts on raising your legal fees, how to know when it's time to do so and how to do so and how to communicate that to clients. If you need help with your fees, with running your law firm, if you're struggling with pricing your services and figuring out how to do so, reach out. I'd be happy to help. And if this video helped, I'd appreciate, a like. And we continue to talk about all things law firm ownership and how to run the business side of having a law firm. So I'd like to have you follow along and join me. And I'll see you in the next one. All right.